My name is Dr. Chris Thurber. I am the co-founder of Expert Online Training, which is the sponsor of this webinar series. This season, we're focusing our webinar series on tools for directors that put them in a better position to help train their staff. And we're really fortunate today to have Professor Dave Malter with us. And Dave is going to focus this webinar on ways to train staff and work with them that engender loyalty. And the shorthand title for the webinar, Training Lifers, is all about how you increase your return rate. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Dave, who will say one or two words about his bio and just get right to it.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for coming. So like Chris said, I'm Dave Malter. I go by Professor Dave because I do teach at Temple University as a professor. It's kind of my mainline gig, and I run a master's program for camp administration and leadership. I'm just a lifelong camp guy. I've been in camps for about 30 years or so, with just 1 or 2 summers off traveling a little bit when I was younger. And I really work with lots of different camps, lots of different organizations on staff engagement, staff training, all those good things. So I'm really excited to be here today to share just a few of the tools that I'm trying to encourage people to use this summer and going forward in kind of a truncated form, because you don't have a lot of time, but it's some of the things that I found have been really useful for the camps that I'm working with on trying to get their staff more engaged and keep people coming back year after year. One of the biggest issues I hear when I'm at conferences or I'm working with a camp is hiring. And we're right in the thick of it right now. A lot of you have about 80 days or less to go before camp starts, and you're doing that last minute hiring. And it's stressful, and it's difficult, and it takes attention away from probably other tasks that you wish you could be doing. So my goal is really to help you figure out how you can do a little less hiring every summer, how you can get people to come back and also make your training more effective, even if those people don't come back, which is fine, to send them off after the summer and after you've trained them as better people. So I broke it down for our purposes today into kind of 4 major areas. So
you want me to throw up that first slide?
Throw up that slide, yeah. So this is kind of part of a bigger conversation, but the 4 areas of focus that I'm going to work on today and kind of talk about, and hopefully you'll ask me some questions, are not only pieces that you can use during staff training, but I feel that it's really important to do kind of this while you're hiring and onboarding into staff training. So it's a huge cycle. So whether you start hiring in September or October or whenever it might be, that you just keep this going and you have tools to do this as you go through the full cycle before they get to camp. Because just having somebody come to camp doesn't, and all of a sudden you start throwing all these things at them, probably isn't the most effective way. So I want you to think of this in terms of kind of starting early and never ending and doing this throughout the summer and then starting again. So the first piece that I want to talk about is connection. And so, Chris, you could throw up that second slide.
I just went back to us because we're so good looking.
Right, exactly. Okay. If you go to the second slide.
Oh, sorry.
Chris and I really like each other.
It's all right. Here we go. Yeah.
So.
What happened? All right.
Chris, where's your technology expert? Is there a tech person in the room?
Yeah, right. No, yes. Quick, fill the time.
So when I talk about anything, it's always in terms of the perspective that your staff member is bringing in. So for me, it's all about appealing to them. So we have to first understand that our staff are a different generation than probably some of us on this phone call, different generation than me and Chris for sure. And their needs and desires at work might be different than what we might have. And a lot of that comes from them not understanding the full scope of what goes into camp. They know what you've told them. So what I really want to talk about first is the idea of mission and connection. So most of us, I hope, have mission statements. And what I found with working with camps is the majority of those mission statements become marketing tools. So they're really geared towards parents, a little bit towards campers. They're kind of higher level. They're, make sure kids have a great summer, make sure they're learning 21st century skills, independence, whatever tools and words and what you think is important for your customer is really what a mission statement becomes. A staff member who you hire to work seasonally for anywhere from 7 to 10 weeks or whatever your time is, they really don't understand what your mission statement is. They probably don't understand the mission of camp. They probably don't understand the business of camp. They're there because you've sold them on camp, much like you have a parent and a camper. So what's important to do at staff training and throughout this process of hiring and onboarding is helping them connect with some sort of mission. What is their role in that mission? What can they contribute? What do they expect you to contribute? So it's beyond just throwing up when they, when they get hired, and then when they get to camp and you throw up a slide at staff training or orientation and that says our mission, right? You have to go a little bit further than that. What is their mission? Why are they there? Because they don't necessarily know. They think they're just there to, get some great food. If they're a residential camp, sleep in a really comfortable bed all summer. That's all jokes, by the way.
I got it. But no, but you're saying this really takes it to a different kind of level, and I've encouraged people in the chat room. I'm occasionally looking away from the camera to see if people have written in questions. And again, all of you should feel free to type a question if you've got one for Dave, and I'll moderate. But you're saying, Dave, it's not enough for the director or the owner to say, here's the mission of the camp or the other youth serving organization. You're asking the staff to clarify why they are there. And this is post-interview. This is, don't give me any of the, sort of fluffy stuff that you may have shared, which may have been sincere, but it may also be kind of boilerplate. But personally, what are they hoping to achieve that summer? Why does that help to cultivate loyalty? Why am I going to come back to a camp? Why am I more likely if I go through this exercise with you?
Because what we normally do is we tell them our goals. We tell them a lot about our goals and our mission, and people want to be heard. Ultimately, there's not a lot of opportunities in our lives to get heard. I always say your doctor and your priest or your rabbi are really the only people that want to hear about you, or maybe your therapist, right, Chris? Your counselor, right? Those are the only people who want to hear from you, right? Everybody else is busy running their lives, working, doing their own thing. They don't really want to hear from us what our goals are, right? Or what our issues are, or what our motivations are. So for me, giving them the opportunity to do that in this new environment, to share what their goals and their dreams and their passions are, and how that connects to camp once they understand camp a little better, well, that is so powerful. Because nobody else is asking them. They're sitting in class, a professor like me is telling them, these are all the things you need to learn. Right? Their boss at their job at the coffee shop on campus is telling them, here's how you make coffee and make change and use the credit card machine. There's not very many opportunities for them to really share their own vision. And I think that's so powerful that they found a place that allows them to do that, that they'll be much more connected to you and be willing to come back to you. And it's very simple. So that's my first kind of piece that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully people are generating some questions, and feel free to ask. The second piece that I like to talk about, and I do this a lot with camps, and just before I leave Connection, the other thing that I've been encouraging camps to do, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about this, is actually develop a staff mission statement that's unique and different from their camp mission statement. Still, and kind of
some camps who have done this, or have you done this with some of the?
I've done this with some camps, and it's awesome. And it really helps them narrow down what they expect from staff. I've actually had some camps that have put it on the back of their t-shirt for visiting day, what the staff mission statement is, so parents can see it. And it just gives a different dynamic and something else for them to talk about and really get into. So now I'll move, sorry. So the second piece, and there is a slide for this, Chris. I don't know if you can put it back up, is engagement. So I'm assuming that most people have some sort of recognition program already. If you're at day camp on Fridays, you probably, at the end of the day, before you dismiss everybody, or at some point, you give out a special T-shirt, you give out a special certificate or a wristband. If you're a resident camp, typically it's on Saturday nights or whenever your staff meetings are, and you call out some names and people recognize each other. All good. I
Mm-hmm.
really like to talk about it in terms of peer-to-peer. So I did a lot of research on this, and I continue to do it. And one of the biggest proponents is actually Disney. So Disney is amazing because they do millions of dollars worth of research that you and I cannot do. And they do it at all these Fortune 100 companies who hire Disney to come in and help them become better businesses, because Disney is really an amazing business. And the number one factor that they found that will predict success is this peer-to-peer recognition. So employees helping other employees. So I'd like to say that instead of all the directors on this phone call walking around all day and feeling obligated to say, hey, great job, Dave, for getting in the pool today. Or Dave, great job getting that camper up the wall. I like to encourage you to train your staff to do that to each other. It's much more meaningful when the lifeguard at the pool says, hey, Dave, I really appreciate that you, as a counselor, took the initiative to pull that camper aside and work with them one-on-one, because you could see I was really busy with these 10 other kids. Right?
And is that because, I mean, do you think that peer-to-peer recognition comes off feeling more sincere? I mean, it can be very sincere from the owner or the director, but it can also feel like they're kind of doing their job. You know, they're supposed to dole out praise.
Yeah, it's genuine. It's also much more immediate. So think about it, if you're an 18 or 19-year-old and on Monday you do something amazing at camp and you don't get acknowledged for that until Friday or Saturday of that week, or even Wednesday of that week, or whenever it is, doesn't carry much weight. Because now it's just about, oh, I got a t-shirt, I got an extra 20 bucks, I got this wristband, I got this whatever trinket. It doesn't become about the action anymore, it becomes about the reward. Right?
Yeah.
So if you do it immediate and it's from your peer, it's not only genuine, but it's timely and it's meaningful, because you can really process what you did. And you could still, hopefully somebody's still sharing that with the director, and the director can still speak to it at that bigger meeting. But when you do it immediately and it's coming from a friend of yours or somebody who you respect or is in a different leadership position or is from another side of camp that you never get to interact with, that's huge. And that's really what I'm trying to encourage people to do, is get people to really acknowledge each other. It's also going to help everybody do their jobs better, right? So as a camp director, you're not as obligated to say, because remember, you've been the person talking to all these people the entire year since you've hired them. And their expectation is, oh, I'm going to see Dave all the time. He's the camp director. I'm going to see him all the time. He's going to be my buddy. The reality of camp is I'm probably at my desk answering parent phone calls, checking on food orders, right? Arranging for trips, dealing with the health center, dealing with the health department, whatever it is. I don't have time to walk around all day and give that kind of acknowledgement. So a piece of it is also explaining this during staff training and saying, listen, here's my job as the director. Here's what I'll be doing all day. Here's what you can do for each other to make this more meaningful. And I actually developed a program where I do give out a trinket, but it's from peer to peer, and it's at the moment. And it's not, and I can explain that to people. We don't have enough time today to do the whole piece, but people can email me and I can kind of run them through it. It's really great. It really encourages the sharing, and then you share it in front of the campers also. Campers can see it, and campers can be kind of an audience participation kind of piece to it, and they can see how much we care about each other. It's really important to do something that they can feel some sort of closeness to.
Yeah.
So that was my second idea as we're going through this.
You want me to go to the next slide?
Yeah, yeah. So I think, not to use what's going on in the world as for my own personal use, but I think it's really exciting to see what these young people in Parkland and other communities around the country, Chicago, are doing. And as somebody who works with this age group kind of all year long, I'm sure Chris can speak to it as well in his own environment, but they want to make a difference. So there's a lot of bad talk out there, right? We get caught up in the negative about this generation. I don't really like to use the word that you're all thinking, and how they don't have work ethic and they don't do this, but they really, truly want to make a difference. And for many of them, taking a job at camp is an opportunity not just to have this great experience and maybe get a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it is they're looking for, or have a great time. They truly, sincerely want to make a difference, and we have to find out what that is. We truly, as directors, have to ask them, what are their goals and aims? What are their objectives? What are they looking for? And what kind of difference are they looking to make? And then allow them to do that. I think if we let them air that out and talk about it more, it gives them permission to do it. And if we're setting up our risk management in the right way and discussing kind of where the tolerances are for bad behavior and good behavior, which we're all doing anyway, and Expert Online Training has videos about it, right? If we set up those, like I did it, Chris, if we set up those parameters, they feel much more likely or much more welcome to kind of pursue their own goals, right?
Well, and I can imagine too that if you're making a staff mission statement, we get a nice comment from Beth Gartner, who says, I love doing staff mission statements, really helps communication. It's,
Thanks,
you know, you can ask them, listen, when you're making your staff mission statement, my beloved staff, you can include a component that is lofty and not necessarily restricted to this summer or this job. In fact, it'd be great if you did talk about cultivation of leadership skills and you know, organizational skills, being attentive to other people's needs, whatever. But you also should, you know, this is what I'm suggesting directors coach their staff to say, be sure you include in your mission statement something that is specific to this summer and this setting and your job. Your mission statement is broad enough that it might not have specific goals, but when you get to this third idea of having them set goals, it'd be really nice to connect it back to the mission and say, you know, it's like, are these goals congruent with that mission? You know, if the mission talked about, for example, cultivating patience, have you come up with some specific goals for yourself? And what does that look like? I don't know. I just see that linking really, really nicely. And I want to give you a chance to comment more on that. And we've reached about our halfway point, which means that it's fun for me to now raffle off 2 $50 gift certificates. So I'm going to just pause the slideshow here and tell people that one of our longtime sponsors at Expert Online Training and kind of corporate buddies is everythingsummercamp.com. And as the name would suggest, Everything Summer Camps has lots and lots of different gear that you would need. Probably they're best known for their wonderful foot lockers and trunks made in the great state of Wisconsin. So I'm going to look at you got to be present to win. So I'm shuffling now the names of our current attendees. And we've got
so presenters are not eligible. Is that what you're saying?
Presenters are, I'm sorry. But okay, so here we got $50 gift certificates go to the following participants, and I will email you a code that you can use when you go to everythingsummercamps.com. And those 2 lucky winners are Debbie Nickerson and Beth Dales. So congratulations to Debbie Nickerson and Beth Dales. You guys both just won $50 shopping spree at everythingsummercamp.com. Woohoo! All right, so now back to this idea of connecting, you know,
mission, right?
Mission and goals.
Right.
What's next?
So what I like, so something that I've been trying to do, and I think it's been pretty successful, is I have camps actually develop a kind of mission team, right? So one of the complaints that we get a lot from returning staff is that they don't have enough responsibility, they're a little bit bored. So what I've suggested is, as you're developing this mission statement, you kind of let some of your top performing returners kind of sneak off for a couple hours on like a special mission, buy them some pizza, put them in a room, sequester them, and they come back with like a mission statement idea that everybody can kind of vote on and then talk about and kind of bring back together. It's really fun, and it gives those people who feel like they haven't, you know, all right, how many times can I sit through, you know, this session about, you know, whatever it might be, safety at the pool when they're a counselor and they've been doing it for a while and they went to camp there. They're like, all right, I get it. Like, keep your eyes on the pool, listen to the lifeguards, buddy checks, all that great stuff. What can I do differently? And you give them this real responsibility and this real big mission, and you make a big deal, play the theme music for Mission Impossible, like the whole thing, like make a big deal about it and let them go out and kind of sit and talk with each other about what the mission should be for the staff that summer. Then it's going to come back full circle in a few minutes when I talk a little bit more about goals and how to set those goals. But it's a really great exercise in, like Chris said, is connecting the two. Because it's great to have a mission statement, it's great to have goals, but if they're not connecting, then you kind of miss an opportunity there. And again, the way this is going to help you retain people is you give them the opportunity to say, this is how I want to make a difference this summer, and allow them to do it. And if they do, it's the reason why I kept going back to camp, right? I went to the camp that I grew up at. I was a camper there, and then I was the maintenance guy for a couple of years, or maintenance boy, as we were called. And then a new director came in and started a special needs program within this day camp, and identified me as somebody at 15 who could work with special needs kids, which I had no idea that about myself, right? I was, scrawny little kid who liked camp a lot and it was better than sitting at home. And I did really well. And I kept going back because I wanted to not only see those kids, but I wanted to, like my first summer, I taught 16-year-old Justin, who had Down syndrome, how to put his face underwater. At 15, I helped an older kid who was obviously struggling to swim. Yeah. That was me making a difference in that kid's life. I don't know if it made a difference that, forever, but for me, it was me making a difference. And that was a huge reason why I kept going back to camp, because I recognized there were these opportunities. Yeah. And that person let me do that, right? That director encouraged me and allowed me to be part of that, which was really, really important for me when I was a kid.
So what are some other ways, that directors can, feel like it's an overused word, but empower their staff or give them a sense of agency, or I actually like the way that you were treated. Somebody saw something in you and said, this, whether you know it or not, is one of your character strengths, and I see a lot of potential here. I want to give you this challenge. So it wasn't even that, you were empowered after, because you were given opportunities, for example, to teach swimming and work with some of these awesome kids. But what advice would you give directors for, giving everyone an assignment like that they haven't had before, that keeps camp fresh, that gives them real responsibility? We can't just give our, young staff or our LITs or CITs, the crap jobs at camp and clean up this and clean up that, and it's got to be something like you did. How do we encourage directors to do that, or what do they need to do?
So we didn't, just so everybody knows, we did not talk about this beforehand, so it's a perfect segue to my last slide, Chris.
Oh, all right. Which is loading now, so start talking. I'll throw it up.
So really, I call it opportunity, but it really goes back to goals. So providing people opportunities, and you can only do that by finding out more about them. So once we have a mission statement, once they're at camp, what's going to happen is I, as a 15-year-old or even as a 20-year-old, would never have gone up to that director and said, here's what I'm looking for, right? Here's where I want to be. Here's what I want to do. That's not going to happen. There's very few people at that age, or at any age really, even as adults, that are going to have the power in themselves intrinsically to come to a boss and say, this is my goal, and this is what I want to do. So, but they all want opportunity. So one of the reasons why you hear staff leave is because they need to. So remember, I was listening to NPR this weekend, and Julie Lithcote-Hames, who was a Stanford dean, who talks a lot about overparenting and overworking kids and this mental health crisis at colleges, she reminded us that for most of these staff that we have, they've been groomed since high school, and some of them in middle school to find opportunities that will get them somewhere. And it hasn't really been their own choice, right? It's what's expected because you have to go to this college and you have to get this kind of job and you have to do this and you have to get there. So they, again, have not had, sorry to say it this way, the opportunity to talk about what they're looking for, and what their goals are and what their aspirations are, because they're in a very much build my resume mentality where it's got to be a 4.5 GPA, it's got to be these clubs, it's got to be these opportunities, and they're leaving camp because they don't view camp necessarily as a place where they can put something on their resume, quote unquote, that will help them excel. But we can do that. We just have to know what those opportunities are that they're looking for. So actually, before you leave today, Chris will give you access to a PDF that I have used in the past and I use with lots of camps that I work with, that is a goal sheet for your staff. And the very first thing after it says their name is...
And let me just pause there and let people know, on the side of your screen there, here in Webinar Jam, you've got a couple of options. You can see one of them is chat room. One of them is a document icon, looks like a sheet of paper with the corner folded over. And people should be able to access that. I have file sharing on. Don't worry if you can't, because I will also send it out in a post-webinar email so that those people who are watching the recording or those people who are watching us live can expect that follow-up email, which will include that PDF as an attachment. If you want to download it now, you should be able to, but sometimes the system's a little wonky. Anyway, go ahead.
So you'll notice the first thing on it is their name, obviously, and the second piece of information on that piece of paper is, what do you want to do at camp in the future? What's your dream job at camp? Or what's your goal at camp? And then it goes through this series of questions about goals and personal goals and what they think their struggles will be. And what I do with that is that's used 3 times by their supervisor, by whoever, whatever you call them. First, at the end of training, right? Sit down with that person and talk to them about those goals and those opportunities and where those opportunities exist and how they can get there, what they need to do. And then in the middle of the summer, during their midsummer eval, make this a separate piece. Bring it back out again and say, here's what you wrote at the end of staff training. Are you getting there? Do you feel like you're on the right track? How can I support you better? Will you meet this goal? And then at the end of the summer, before they leave, the conversation can go one of 2 ways. You did an amazing job reaching this goal that you put up there, and you're really in consideration now for this next step that you want to take. So if you've been a lifeguard for 2 years and you want to run the waterfront, well, maybe you understand now what you had to do, and you could be there next summer. Definitely apply for that job. Or, I think it might take 1 more summer, but you're really on your way, and here's some additional hints and tips for you to get there. And this opens up this great conversation, and it's so easy. Give them 10 minutes to fill this out, kind of towards the middle or end of staff training, and then you just revisit it. And it's a better conversation than on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you communicating with campers, or, have you been waking up on time, right? It leads to a deeper conversation about where they want to be, and just that acknowledgement for them that there's an opportunity beyond just what they're doing then will bring them back, because you can show them that they can build their resume and their experience. Sorry, Chris,
no, I think you're also saying, it is a way to build their experience and their resume, but also keeps presenting them with a new challenge. We had a nice comment by Zach Pednoff, who said specific missions by department, like the waterfront has a mission statement, or the land sports department has a mission statement, or maybe it's very specific, the archery program has a mission statement. It keeps staff involved, it keeps it fresh, and we've just about reached the end of our 30 minutes, but you mentioned resumes a couple times, so I wanted to make sure people knew that the American Camp Association has some new materials, and you can find them on acacamps.org, that really articulate the ways in which camp is professionally beneficial. So I'll send out my handout on putting camp jobs on your resume, you should check out acacamps.org and look at the ways in which camp is professionally beneficial. Just sharing the infographic that ACA made.
It's a
Right?
great piece, and it's something that you just put up on the screen while you're doing some of this.
Yeah.
And it's huge, right? It's such a, and I think you send it out before you hire people, after you hire people, you know, just constantly reinforcing that this is an important job.
And I'll put up your contact information if people want to be in touch with you. And while they're looking at that, and this will also go out in the follow-up email, I'll mention something else that, you know, this will be my 38th summer at Camp Belknap, which is a traditional overnight boys camp in central New Hampshire. Done a lot of work with them and also with our sister camp Huckins. One of the things that both of these camps started to do was during rest hour, which is a little bit easier to staff than other times, they would ask alums from the camp to, I mean, obviously this involves some planning, but to visit camp that day and be available to the staff who are nearing the end of, let's say, their time at college or university, or maybe have already graduated, to visit with some of these alums and hear what it is that they do and how camp was beneficial to them. So, you know, in the cadet lodge will be the alums who are in finance, in the junior lodge will be the alums who are in healthcare, and so forth. And when your staff can see that people have really amazing professional trajectories once they, you know, are done their camp job. And of course, one of my pet peeves is, you know, people say, like, I'm going to now go get a real job. And I think, you know, there's not anything more real than taking care of other people's children, but I know what they mean. I just encourage people to say they're going to get an outside job. But when folks can see that multiple summers at camp give them the things that you mentioned, you know, an opportunity for growth, to fulfill a personal and professional mission, to fulfill some of the goals that they want to, you know, achieve, and that there are opportunities for advancement that are well thought out and lead to tremendous, you know, careers down the road. You know, why not return to camp? You know, it's a very challenging job, and when we can see what the professional and personal benefits are, it's one that, you know, a lot of my friends just became addicted to. But why don't you give us a few closing thoughts, and then unfortunately we're going to have to wrap up our time, Dave.
Yeah, so I really don't, you know, I don't want to take up too much of people's time. I just wanted to say thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope this was helpful. Obviously, if you need me to expand on anything or want to talk more about any of the things that I mentioned, just shoot me an email. I'm always happy to jump on the phone. Love talking camp all the time. I hope you all have an amazing summer and have great staffs. And something that I think about a lot, because, you know, my wife is a camp director, so I'm living it right now through her. I only have to work them this summer. I don't have to, although I do some hiring for them. It's really stressful right now. I understand, trying to find staff. I just encourage everybody to breathe deeply, because you did it last year. You did it the year before and the year before that, and Chris has been doing it for 38 years. You're going to find those staff members. And camp is going to run. It's going to be amazing. And just like this summer, next summer it's going to run, and you're going to have campers and staff, and it's going to be a great summer. So hopefully this will help you keep some of those great staff that you're finding now, and keep them for multiple years, and help you grow your staff program. So thank you very much, and I hope everybody has a great day and a great summer.
Fantastic. And on behalf of Expert Online Training, we're grateful that you shared some of your afternoon, or I guess if you're on the West Coast, some of your morning with us. Many thanks to Professor Dave Malter for sharing your insights on training lifers and increasing the return rate of your staff. As you said at the beginning, Dave, the more that people follow your wise counsel, the easier their rehiring and hiring jobs will be each season. And for those of you who are not subscribers to expertonlinetraining.com, Dave and I encourage you to check out our materials. Dave's written some amazing out-of-the-box press play workshops that give you an outline for training your staff on various topics. And we have more than 130 video training modules that will give your staff the confidence they need to do their jobs well. And when they have that confidence and the skills to do their jobs, they will also be more likely to return summer after summer. So on behalf of the rest of the EOT faculty, many thanks to Dave Malter, and we wish you all a wonderful summer. Thanks for
everybody.
joining us.